Women's 145-pound super fight. My opponent was a little bit smaller than me, so I appreciate her not making me cut weight and coming up in weight a little bit. It's kind of funny because before we competed, I tested out the mats, and the first thing I said to my coach is, "Dang, these mats are really slick." So she goes in for like a little collar tie here, and we tie up, and she snaps, and I bite on it super hard and slip. So that was not my finest moment. Not super proud of that. I think it was a combination of I knew she was a big guard player, and so I wasn't expecting her to stand with me. And so then when she went to snap me down, I just bit on it real hard and then slipped and wasn't able to recover. So not my finest moment, but good job for her. So she snapped me down. I'm in this kind of half guard position. She's looking to pass, and she's able to get past that half guard, but I'm wanting to get up to my knees so that I can get back to my wrestle ups. So I'm starting to come up. I'm digging in on a leg, and she's trying to come around and flatten me. She's doing a good job with this cross face, but I am doing a good job of staying on my side and trying to frame on her hips and start to come up and either get my guard back or start to wrestle up. Here I'm able to get underneath her leg and start to come up to my knees. I'm able to get in on a leg, and once I got that leg, I'm able to start to come up for my wrestle up. I'm not really sure what she's doing here. She's getting some kind of underhook thing, but anyway, I'm able to come up and dump her and get on top. So not a great start for me, but I was able to recover well and have a nice little wrestle up. And now I am trying to look to break open her closed guard. She is looking to attack for her sweeps and submissions. We are both hand fighting for good positioning here. She is trying to break my posture down and look for her sweeps and submissions. I am trying to stay postured up and look to pin either her arms or her hands so that I can start to stand up and look for my guard break. Here she opens up her guard. I'm assuming to attack for like a sweep or submission. I start to come up to try to see if I can work for my pass. I want to try to keep her on her back and get that top positioning. I'm trying to stay squared up with her hips, and she's able to pull me back down into her closed guard. She starts to walk her legs up high to keep my posture broken down, while I am looking to hand fight to inside positioning and start to press up and get my posture back. I'm still trying to keep my hips nice and squared up with her hips so that she's not able to cut for angles, and I'm able to posture back up. She starts to try to swim over my left arm to look for an attack, but I'm doing a good job of staying nice and postured up and keeping my elbows in tight to prevent that from happening. She's trying to pull me back down into her closed guard, and I am trying to stay postured up and wedge my knee in to prevent her from closing her guard again. Here, I decide to try to sit back on a leg lock. In hindsight, I kind of wish I just stood back up with that leg instead, kind of like a single leg, and put her back on her back. But, you know, you live and you learn. So I wind up in this kind of modified, it's not really DOA, but this modified leg lock position, trying to see if I can press her way and get back to my leg entanglements. But she's doing a good job flattening me out, and so we wind up in this half guard position instead. I'm looking to try to get to my hip to look for my sweeps. She is looking to try to keep me as flat as possible so that she can free her leg and start to pass to a top position. You can see us kind of hand fighting on her left side, my right side. Ideally, either one of us wants that underhook. So right now she has the underhook and she's doing a good job of using her head to pin and try to keep it, but I am trying to swim my hand underneath to start to look for that underhook, and I'm able to get it and start to lock my hands. Here I'm able to start to get some momentum going with my legs and with my lockdown to try to create space and try to get up onto my hip. She starts to go high with her hips to try to wedge that pass. I'm almost able to start to get my closed guard back, but she is doing a good job of keeping her knee wedged in to prevent me from locking up that guard. Here she does a really nice job of hitting this little knee cut pass and is able to get that underhook and then use that underhook not only to try to pass, but to start to circle around and set up for her armbar. Really nice transition. Here I was in a little bit of danger, but I was able to lock my hands up pretty quickly. And then here I'm able to start to work up to my knees and start to put her down on her back. And once I had her on her back, I felt pretty confident. I think I was in a little bit of danger once I was more flat. But because she wasn't able to separate hands and extend the arm while I was flat, and I was able to come up and start to stack her, I felt pretty good here. Obviously, you don't want to be stupid, but I was able to establish really strong grips kind of from the get-go and start to stack her, and I knew there was plenty of time left on the clock. We still have about 4.5 minutes, so knew I would have plenty of time to work for my escapes. That said, she did have strong positioning. You could tell that she plays this position a lot. So I knew that I had to be really careful not to get lazy with my defense and make sure that I was keeping my arm bent and locked and not letting her start to separate my hands and extend the arm. Here you can see she's trying to underhook my leg and circle underneath me to try to flatten me back out, but I'm doing a good job of keeping her stacked up. Here I'm trying to poke my head back into her guard to help stop this armbar. I'm starting to wedge my head back in. She's trying to stay nice and tight. I can feel my head starting to kind of poke back through, so she does this nice little rebite to get her leg back over my head. But by now, I've created a fair amount of space, so I'm able to start to wedge my head back into her guard. I'm still keeping my hands locked nice and tight to make sure I prevent her from relocking. She goes for that little rebite over my head again, is starting to try to pull her arm out so that she can use it to try to separate hands, but I'm able to, again, get my head back in and reestablish back into her guard. So I'm out of danger of the armbar and starting to look to either pass or go into my leg entanglements from this position. Because we're starting to run a little bit low on time, we have about 3 minutes left, I am starting to look more for my leg entanglements. Here you can see I'm kind of looking to attack an Aoki lock, but my coach yells at me not to force it, which was good advice. I think if I'd sat back on that, that maybe would have been a little bit too rushed, and we're back in the closed guard. I'm back to hand fighting, and she is looking to, once again, break down my posture and attack for sweeps and submissions, while I am looking to control hands and start to stand for my guard breaks. I also need to be mindful of staying squared up with her hips and not letting her cut angles, because she'll be able to more easily attack for sweeps and submissions if she's able to cut angles with her guard versus if I'm able to keep her hips square on the mat. Here I'm able to establish bicep control and start to work for my log splitter pass. She has a really good guard, very flexible, very strong, and so I'm having a hard time getting that guard break and getting that guard to open. Here she opens up her guard to try to cut for some sweeps and submissions, so I'm able to capitalize and stand up. I'm starting to try to wedge my knee into her guard to either look for my pass or for my leg entanglement positions, but mostly just to prevent her from locking up closed guard again. Here I start to secure my positioning on the legs, and I'm a little bit more shallow than I would have liked. This wasn't a bad entanglement. I almost was able to come up and take her back, but she scrambles away, and we wind up back in this guard position. Once again, I'm looking to either pass or go into my leg entanglements. Here, I'm starting to try to go double unders, but she does a good job of keeping her hips flat to prevent me from doing that. She is looking to try to pull me back into her closed guard. Here you can see she's very bendy. I'm trying to wedge my knee in between her legs so I can prevent her from getting that closed guard and start to look for my leg lock positioning. I start to sit back on a leg, but I knew it wasn't in, so I come back up and she's able to reestablish her closed guard. I'm back to hand fighting, looking for either my 2-on-1 grip or bicep control. She's looking to try to break my posture down. Here I'm laughing because she was trying to go for a little wrist lock, which was funny. We were both kind of giggling about that because we knew the time was running low, so we were both kind of sub hunting. Here I was able to wedge my knee into her guard and start to get a good bite on the leg. I've got a good ashy positioning and I'm starting to dig for her heel to start to go for my heel hook. Here I'm able to start to get that little bite on the heel and she rolls to try to defend. I roll with her. I had a pretty good bite, but I wasn't quite able to get it. So I start to pass it to the other side. She kind of goes for, I think she was going for a toe hold here. That wasn't really in. So I start to switch to inside heel hook. She starts to try to come up to stack me. The time is running low, so I'm trying to extend her back out and attack for that heel, but she's doing a good job of stacking, and the time runs out. This was a really fun match. This was really, really good for both of us. I felt like it was very back and forth. I felt like we had a lot of really, really good exchanges. It was sub only, so it did go to ref's decision, and I was able to secure the referee's decision. I thought this was a really great event and a really great match. I had a lot of fun. Everything ran really, really smoothly. So big thank you to the promotion for having us out. I think in the moment I was very critical of myself and of my performance because I knew I was having an off day and I knew that I was not making some of the best decisions. I didn't do bad, but it definitely was not my best. I think watching it back fresh, I'm a little bit less critical of myself. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I need to fix, and it definitely was not my best performance. But I do feel like I deserved the win. Even though it was a really close match, I think the leg lock exchanges at the end are kind of what tipped the scales in the referee's mind over who should win. I also had top position a little bit more during the match. She had a tendency to concede and fall to her back when I pressured her, which definitely helped my case a little bit as well. But that said, I do believe that under a sub only rule set, if neither one of you got a sub, you both lost. So I'm excited to get back in the gym and start fixing some of the mistakes that I made. Thank you to her for the match. I thought she did really, really well. I thought it was a really fun back and forth match. And thanks for watching. Subscribe.